Alrighty, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Customer Success Show. Episode number 27. We're talking leadership today, one of our favorite conversations and topics. And I have another amazing panel today. But before we get to them, let's follow our normal format, which we always do. So welcome. So first thing with Success Panda, as some of you might have seen if you follow me on LinkedIn and all the things, we have a group. It's a paid group. It's $20 a month to join. It's called Panda Pals. And if you are a job seeker and you're looking for a low cost point of entry to join into an awesome group of people who are just organically doing a lot of awesome things, then we have an awesome person, Karen, who is currently in the group. So we're going to have people every week from now on just come on and say something cool about Success Panda, and hopefully they decide to show up and say something cool. They could always come up here and say something not cool, but we risk that too. But Karen, hey, just share real quick your thoughts on how did you find out about Panda Pals and Success Panda? What's been your experience so far?
Sure. Yeah, it's been a great experience. I've been doing it for probably about 2 months now. Brad and I connected on LinkedIn, so I started seeing his posts about the coaching that he offers, both one-on-one and the group calls. So I joined the group calls initially, and just finding so much value in it as a job seeker. I'm currently looking for my next opportunity, and to be in a group with other job seekers providing support and encouragement. And Brad has, a lot of great advice and suggestions, walks us through a specific topic each week, whether it's working on your resume, working on your LinkedIn, how can you stand out from other candidates. So it's been a huge value add for me in my current search. And so I highly recommend, especially for the money that Brad's charging, for his time, it's well worth the small investment to join and just see what you get out of it.
I know I make a joke with the group. I've taken on vows of poverty, but it's okay because I really love helping people, and I think that's shining through. And Karen did so well because we put her right on the spot before the call. So Karen, you get a gold star today, automatically up 1 gold star. So awesome.
Well, it's easy to talk about something you like, right?
Yeah, there you go. That is a good point. Alrighty, so let's do a panel intro. I'm excited about this call today. This is one of my favorite conversations that we can have, as well as I know a lot of the people that tune in and watch always love talking about leadership. So on my screen, why don't we just go ahead with Karen, Philippe, and then Ashley in intro. So give us like your minute or two of who you are, what you do, and also something fun you like to do.
Sure. Karen Banks, based in the San Diego area. My last role was Senior Director of Client Success and Support for a tech startup. I am looking for a new full-time opportunity. I enjoy working in client success. I've been client-facing the majority of my career, from all the way back to working in hospitality, working my way through college. So I really enjoy working with people, both internally, collaborating, as well as working with clients. What I do for fun, I love to travel as much as I can, and enjoy just staying active in San Diego. It's great to take advantage of being outside, going to the beach, hiking. I play pickleball, dancing.
Rub it in, Karen. Rub it in. Keep going with your list. Keep going.
It is pretty awesome.
Some of us live in Ohio by choice. No, keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Yeah. No, awesome. Cool. Go ahead, Philippe.
I think by choice, Brad is an odd one to stay in Ohio, but whatever.
Yeah.
So Philippe Meseritz, I've been in leadership positions for about 20 years, ranging from teams of 2 to 200. Most recently, I was the general manager of a $32 million brand. I've been VP of Success, Professional Services, Operations, Experience, and Support for a $250 million company. So in social networking space, I've done associations, nonprofit, you kind of name it. But for me, I love leading teams. I love figuring out on how to help mentor people and really raise them. I'm currently a fractional chief customer officer, also looking for full-time work simultaneously, but here to help people through mentorship opportunities and others. From a kind of fun fact perspective, I guess, for what I'm doing for fun right now is people that follow me on LinkedIn see it. I'm rebuilding our kitchen. So in the process of doing lots of woodworking, bought my first table saw, bought a couple of other pocket screws and jigs and all that fun things to currently working on the crown molding.
Well, that is cool. I used to have a custom furniture business, so
Nice.
very familiar with all of that back in the day when I was just carrying around 100-pound tabletops and a little bit more buff. Less buff now, but
I hear you.
I know. Don't look at those pictures. Makes me sad. All right, go ahead, Ashley.
All right, bringing up the rear. Hi,
Yeah.
everyone. I'm Ashley Stamps-Lafont, and I'm sitting in beautiful Montreal, Quebec, but I'm originally from Wisconsin. I'm a customer success exec for the last 8 years. That has been in leadership and primarily looking at technical profiles across gaming, media and entertainment, fintech. From my world, I consider customer success to be, yeah, it's a team, it's a function, but it's also a company philosophy. And I try to get that mentality into the heads of everyone, whether I'm mentoring individual contributors or I'm advising some startup founders. I recently made my part-time gig my full-time gig in the Success RX, which is my customer success advisory firm. Currently mentoring a cohort of about 10 folks in go-to-market, customer success included. And I'm really excited to be talking to fellow fractionals on this call. But like the fellow fractionals, I think finding the right opportunity to come in and join the right team and help them scale it out, that's probably priority number one.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thanks to everybody for the intro. All right, so people that have been watching the show for a while know kind of like the format where this is kind of, I'll ask a question, everyone will go around, have about 1 to 2 minutes to give an initial response, and then we'll just open it up until we feel like we'll move on to the next question here. But with so much change, I want to lead off by this, like with so much change that's going on both in the job market, both in customer success, right? What do you feel like is, when we're talking about leadership, what do you feel like those people in go-to-market or in customer success, however you want to look at it, but what do you think a leader's role is right now? Or what kind of stresses, what are their stresses, and what's the leader's role are they dealing with right now with having to manage through all of this different change, whether it's AI or different market challenges or some macro challenges. So if anyone wants to, I don't know if we have a volunteer to go first.
I have a point of
we'll just
view.
work around.
I do have a point of view.
Okay.
So I'd say that, of course, AI is on everyone's minds, but in customer success in particular, the real challenge is being able to tie the activities of your team to the company's bottom line. And I think if you're a leader who has not been called to be accountable for that before, you certainly got a wake-up call in 2024, and we're asked to, not come up with vanity metrics. So if you look down LinkedIn feeds, you'll typically see, how can your customer success team be more commercial? How can they start to own more revenue? And that certainly has been the more common topic in a lot of the circles that I've found myself in.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Go ahead, Philippe.
So I'm 100% on board with Ashley. I think the one thing is commercial doesn't always mean quota carrying, which a lot of people are starting to talk about, is CSMs should carry quotas. It's like, really, do they need to? Or is it that they need to have a direct correlation? And I think that commercial ownership is one of the biggest changes. But I'd say from a leadership perspective, one of the things that I think in today's world, CS leaders especially need to be better at is fear reduction and change management, is helping their teams realize that the world is kind of strange at the moment, and it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to have the emotions that are coming from that and helping them navigate that. So how do you help tell the story so people aren't as afraid and they're navigating through this change by providing skills, mentorship, and coaching throughout?
Nice.
I would also add that I think it's really important in the environment we're in right now for leaders to think about balance. So how do you balance the bottom line, like Ashley said, with the human component of your employees, your company? There's changes happening culturally in big organizations, small organizations, with turnover, employee turnover. It impacts not only the people leaving, but it impacts the people staying. So now you're being asked to do the same amount of work with fewer resources. I think being an empathetic leader, being somebody who's showing appreciation to the people on your team, recognizing their inputs is really, really important to keep your people engaged, or else you're going to lose the top talent. So I think we might start seeing a shift where people who aren't happy in their companies are going to start looking for other opportunities because they don't feel valued and appreciated. So I think that's a big component as well.
Yeah, I know that's a fact because they've already reached out and I'm coaching them. But yeah, no, it's there, and that's the thing too is in my experience, I think right now, if I were to just chime in, like the biggest challenge, I think it's just a lot of the change management. You have to have the right people in the right seats, and a lot of people with so much change that's happened. If you're in a startup going from 0 to 5 million, it's a different kind of skill set, CS maturity. You're going from 5 to 20, it's a different, and then going from 20 to 100 and then 100 and above. Like there's different people who are different fits for different maturities within the organization. And what I always tell people is you have to do the whole Socrates, know thyself, know where you thrive, know the work that you like to do. Like one of the people that I'm working with right now, it's like going through the what is it, 7 stages of grief, or what is it, the denial, or I can't remember, right? Maybe it's both, but it's the fact that you realize that the change has happened and that you have to make a trade-off of either I'm going to just live with this and I'm probably going to be miserable, or I have to make a change myself, because it's not a newsflash to anybody in companies, like stuff comes from the bottom or from the top down, right? So trying to understand what are the goals and the opinions of whether it's customer success or go to market. I largely say you cannot overcome the constraining beliefs of your most senior leadership. So if you're at a company and they're like, oh, customer success is about support, and you realize that it needs to be more commercially driven to prove, then that's going to be a challenge, because that's the way things flow, top down. So cool. Let's talk about right now. The majority of the audience is in customer success, right? So leaders have to wear lots of hats, right? And right now it feels like people are be giving more responsibility and they're wearing more hats. Talk to that person right now who's going to be watching this either live or on the recording. How does a leader approach when they're being asked to layer on more responsibility, say when their team is already dealing with burnout, like how Karen says, just like teams are feeling burnt out, and how do we help manage that?
I'll never forget when one of my CS senior managers came to me and said, our team feels like the garbage collectors. And I can say that is an excellent job. If you are looking to find some stability, a city job in sanitation, my mom always told me that's a good one. But in the case of customer success, it's because we plug so many holes. We clean up so many messes. We create Band-Aids for things that are fundamentally broken or do not yet exist. And one thing that we need to challenge ourselves as leaders is, how much more can our team take? And the answer to that question is almost always nothing else without cracking. So you need to practice really like aggressive prioritization and know exactly what your team is there to do and what they're not there to do. I think it takes the ability to brand yourself and position your team in a way where you are still helpful to your customers. You're so helpful to the other parts of the organization that need you. But it's essential for you to refocus your energies and ensure that your team is aware of that refocus and they're not left behind at the same time.
Nice. Yeah, Ashley, your aggressive prioritization, there's a term in the PE world that they use a lot, and that's ruthless prioritization.
Mhm.
And it's literally digging into that. But I think that's a critical component of it. I also think one of the challenges that I see for frontline CS team members, especially, is they want to do so much for customers. And then they forget the fact that half of what they're doing isn't their job, right?
Mhm.
And I don't like the statement, it's not my job, as a standard, because it doesn't help
Right.
anybody and it creates problems. But there is a line, is it falling your responsibility? And if it doesn't, then your job should be, well, let me get you to the person. Let me help you find the whatever it is. And I think that's an area that frontline CSMs that I've coached and that I talk to, they always struggle with, but a customer.
Mhm.
And yeah, you're right. A customer's asking you to escalate the support ticket, to talk about product, to talk about their, like, but what is your actual value to the company? And what is the reason you were hired? And that's where ruthless prioritization comes into play. It's understanding what your role is so that you can push away everything else. And leaders need to be there to facilitate that. Leaders need to be able to be there to protect against that and to push upwards towards executive leadership or whoever you're reporting to say,
Mhm.
do you really want us to do this? Because then this is not being done. And
Mhm.
this is what drives the business value.
Philippe, can you tell I spent the last 2.5 years in PE world? Because what you just said is spot on.
8 years for me. So yeah, I hear you.
Mhm. I'm
I
sorry.
also think another thing that's really helpful, and I think sometimes we overlook this, is reaching out internally to the other department leads and saying, look, my team is resource constrained. Here's where we're struggling. Do you have resources on your team that can partner with us? Maybe take a little bit off this person's plate, or at least jump in and help a little bit. And most of the time when I would reach out and do that, they were very receptive to, like, hey, let's problem solve this.
Mhm.
You either all win together or you all lose together, however you want to look at it. So, they should be just as vested in client success and customer success as we are as leaders. So I think really looking across your organization to say, look, this is a struggle right now. We're resource constrained. How can we all team up to make this a little bit easier for everybody? And most of the time, you'll find the other leaders are like, yeah, let's look at this and see how we can shift some things around.
Nice.
Karen, I think one thing I would add to that is that the challenge that I've always run into is everybody's resource constrained. So you have to figure out, like, okay, let's collectively figure out what we're not going to do. And I think that's part of, because other departments all have their expectations of what we are going to be executing on. And so how do you help identify what those areas are that we're like, look, if we drop this, we stop this process, we stop this extra documentation, we stop this extra set of steps to make it streamlined, it will help you and it'll help us. And I always call it, so I've been doing trainings lately on what's in it for them to help you. Because most leaders, when they approach this, they go, hey, Karen, can you help me? Which
Mhm.
doesn't give you the incentive to be part of that, because it's like, how do you make that a bi-directional partnership to deliver, like you said? But that's where I think a lot of people forget the value of that.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting because, like, going through a job search, people are asked, like, hey, what's good questions to ask at the end of the interview? I'm like, ask them, why is this position on the payroll? And people are like, oh, that's a dumb question. It's like, no, it's not. What it's going to tell you is what's the number one KPI that is going to keep your job or get you fired, right? Because when we're talking about, like, CSMs, where it's just like, oh, but the customer, like Philippe was saying, but they need this and I want to do this. It's like, well, just to let you know that not all activities are made equal. So if you're doing activities that are not going to retain your job, then you're not going to be able to be helpful for your customers, right? And so just understanding, like, what the KPIs are. And I think my number one definition of leadership is the ability to get results through other people. So it's you as a leader, you have to provide the clarity, right, for your team, which is, hey guys, senior leadership, like the C-suite's asking us to do like 20 things because it's easy to just mandate to say, do these 20 things, and you're already burnt out. So the defensible position is, let's stick with the KPIs that we're trying to do. If we can get around doing it, it's okay. And I just will go to them and say, hey, you're asking us to do this. Everybody's at a capacity. I want you to understand the trade-offs. So here are the trades. We can do this, or we can do this. But regardless, you're going to lose efficiency gains from people who have been doing this job for 4 to 6 years, who have been here. If you burn them out, just to know if you burn them out, I want you to say those words right now. I want to burn them out, right? But typically when you place it in such black and white terms, it allows people to be like, oh, okay, so we need a trade, or when we think about bringing in a tool for efficiency gains and things like that. But I think so often the key skill, and this is the next question, is how do we have hard conversations with people? So if you're in that manager, director, VP role, right? How do we have hard conversations with people that we report to? Like, what's been your experience as a leader in having hard conversations with, executives or C-suite people?
Data as a lead-in always makes it easier, and it makes it resonate with them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the best and earliest mentors I had said, you need to manage up, and that is the best skill that you could develop as a leader. And I absolutely agree with him. I think it's very important to know that these people are incredibly busy. They have a lot of inputs coming at them at any point in time. Getting straight to the point and ensuring that you allow the numbers to lead is one way of you setting the foundation for there being that buy-in. I also think reading the room is just a skill that a lot of people lack. And I certainly needed to be able to balance what I thought was important. And it was clearly something that I was passionate about, but I needed to meter my approach in order to ensure that we were going to have an effective conversation at the end of the day. It is difficult though, especially if, like a lot of CS leaders, you find yourself reporting to someone that you did not report to last year. And, we see this in that there has been a lot of turnover at the senior leadership level. So you do have to establish that rapport first in order to, I think, have a healthy foundation. But from there, the numbers really tell the truth.
So before we move on, so many good things you just said, Ashley. And I want to keep the thread on this original question, but follow-up question: why do you think? And I saw some statistic. It was somebody in the space who posted, I think the average time for a CS executive was like 16 months or 18 months. 18. It was like, 18. Okay, yeah, Philippe. Maybe you posted that. I don't know. Maybe it was your post. But it's 18 months. So, I mean, why? Why is it 18 months? Why do you think? I mean, speculation here on the spot, but
I have some thoughts. Yeah, I'm just trying to keep it concise. I think it's because we were hired to do one job and then the game changed.
Shocking.
And to put it very simply, the reason why someone was hired as a customer success leader between 2016 and 2021 was because everybody has to do customer success, or you're setting yourself up for failure. And I think that it worked in our favor collectively as leaders because we were in demand, right? Everywhere you go, you see director of customer success positions advertised, customer success manager positions advertised, and you did not need to have the same understanding of unit economics. You did not need to be someone who was revenue minded. You did not need any of these things. And when you find yourself being called to do one job and then all of a sudden you're asked to pivot, then it doesn't exactly work sometimes. And the leader above you, if there is one, also has had to do the same thing.
Googling EBITDA. Go ahead, Philippe.
Well, the only thing I would add to Ashley's statement, because I do agree that the goalposts have changed, the direction have changed. The other part of it, I think, is C-suite leaders don't have the patience to wait out the time that it actually takes to change a full renewal, right? It's one thing if you're dealing with monthly quick connections, you can more quickly solve for it. But especially when you talk B2B space, these are contracts that are 12, 18, 36 months, 24, 36 months long. And so expectation that, hey, you've fixed all of our problems in a year and our renewal rates will go from 80 to 95 is often not logical.
Mhm.
So I think one of the problems that CS leaders had, because of all the opportunities that they had, because the lack of education that many of us had throughout our careers, we didn't think about it in the C-suite way. We didn't think about it as, how do we tell the story?
Mhm.
And so when we get into the interview, we're like, yep, I'll take the job, instead of, how am I being measured? What are we being measured against? What's my timeline? How long are you giving me a runway to do these things? Is
Right.
it reasonable? So you get into a position where you haven't asked any of these questions. You start, and then they're like, all right, 6 months. I give you 6 months to fix it. And then you get into trouble, and then so you turn over.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Nice. Karen, you have some thoughts on either of these?
It's just, yeah, it's, I think for me, in the experience that I've had at my last two roles, just the constant shifting of who owns the renewals, and what part are you actually playing? So those leaders are constantly, do I own the number? Do they own the number? And so it was this constant battle, and everybody's still having this discussion. Does sales or account manager own the renewal? Should client success, customer success own the renewal? And there are people on both sides of that argument. So, and when you have a commission structure on these roles over here, but not over here, but yet you're saying you're going to own the number, that's where it gets a little dicey. And so I think it's a lot of companies are trying to navigate this and figure out what is the right mix for your product, for your business, for your customer base. And that's where I think you have to figure out what really works for your business, because I don't think it's the same formula for every company.
No, Karen, and I think you're spot on with that, because let's be very real. We're in the middle of an identity crisis for customer success. And because of that, we've sort of been historically known as this generalist function. And who gets cut whenever the going gets tough? The generalists, right? So that does make it difficult for you to stick around. And that's, to answer your original question, Brad, why I think the tenure is so much shorter than what you would find for some other executive roles. Karen, I also think that you're pointing to something that is absolutely true in terms of who owns the number. I did reach out to several CEOs just a little while back, and I said, hey, customer success is reporting to CROs more often than they used to. Who is asking for that change? And they were very candid and said, well, the CEO is asking because they just want one person to own the number.
Mhm.
Or, the CFO wants to be able to simply say customer success is in sales and marketing wholly, or that they're in COGS wholly. And it's just a matter of simplicity and being able to draw some more of those concrete lines. Again, it doesn't mesh well with the concept of customer success being a generalist function.
Well, what's funny, Ashley, is you said something, and it's that whole, the CFO wants to have a single person owning it, or the CEO wants to have a single person owning it. Brad, that 18 months of a CS leader staying in seat, I recently actually saw another post that said it's the same amount as a VP of sales. So you have the same problem across the whole go-to-market play.
Right.
And I think one of the challenges that we have today is we don't tell the story to our executives in a good enough way. We don't tell it in a way that the executives understand or care about. So Ashley talked about data, and I think that's the lead into it. But I would also say the second component of how to communicate with your executives is, my old COO, she used to call this big animal pictures. So the bigger the animal you can make the picture, the better clarity it is for the executive. And recently I've started a kind of a jokey statement. It's the whole KISS, keep it simple, stupid principle. Only I call it keep it simple executive, right? Because the executives have a very clear expectation of what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish. But to Ashley's point, they have so many things that they're trying to juggle. They have so many data points, so many different departments. Like a CRO now runs sales, often will run sales ops, will run CS ops, will run CS, you name it, sales engineering. Those are all different disciplines. There's very few CROs that have done all of them. Same thing with chief customer officers. There's very few CCOs that have done PS, support, success, operations experience.
Mhm.
They come up with one thing, and therefore they don't know everything. And so the department heads have to teach their executives, this is what matters to your goals, your business, your data.
Yeah. What if, I mean, not saying that this has happened to me in the past personally, or I've been in rooms, but let's just hypothetically say that the data is bad. You got bad news to deliver, right? And the bad news is, okay, here's the data. So we talked about Ashley and Philippe, you talking about, hey, we got to deliver the data. Well, I think there's some hesitancy that I've seen, whether being the person or being someone who knows the data and seeing the person go to the executive to deliver bad news. It's like, well, I don't want to tell the bad news because then the political jujitsu has to break out. Well, who's responsible for this bad news? Is it the leader or is it someone from your team or things like this? So I think the skill set of being able to storytell, but also have hard conversations, right? And I think this is why the number one thing that I tell job seekers is like, spend a lot of time trying to find out, even if you're just a CSM in your entry level, what does the senior leadership believe customer success is?
Mhm.
Because as Ashley said, we have an identity crisis. We don't have hard definitions. Hey, Philippe, what does sales do? Sell. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. What does product do? They product. Well, what does customer success do? Support, sell, revenue, go to market, happy customers. It's just like you get the random, it's all the definition. So it's like our own worst enemy, what I find. And then you have to understand in the mind space of what the founder or the CEO or the senior leaders believe that customer success should be. And you kind of have to like be that thing, right?
Yeah. Brad,
Otherwise, yeah, it's going to be a dumpster fire.
yeah, Brad, you mentioned something earlier because you were talking about the fact that when you're looking for a job, you need to ensure that you know where you play best.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a question that everyone should be asking themselves, regardless of if you're a leader in customer success or an individual contributor. You need to ask yourself, if I had to specialize or narrow my scope to one thing, what
Right.
would that be? And it's because some of my own mentees have said, hey, I went up for this role with a startup, and I thought that I was a great on paper fit. We were having great conversations, but they went with somebody else. It's like, well, why did they go with someone else? Because that other person was able to sell themselves to that stage of where the company was, the pace of work where they were. You may have come from a larger company, but you have to be honest with yourself. It's not a question of, could I do this? But it's a question of, can I excel in this? Do I enjoy what I do? Because that's really what's going to separate you from other people and also give you the best opportunity to not just get that job, but to be good at that job.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't fake the energy, especially like in those interviews where that's one of the big components, right, that I teach is that interview technique and energy is what moves you on. And there are people who are quite convicted when they speak about, I know that I'm a great 0 to 5 million CSM because I do this and this and this. And then whereas people who they don't know where they fit, or they're just looking for their next thing and things like that, being articulate about what you're looking for is super powerful. So I agree. Okay, hold on. Let's transition here real quick to another question that I really, really want to ask, which is there are going to be people who are currently in leadership roles. How do you build a high functioning team? So you're a leader and you say, hey, Karen, you're hired, you're director of customer success. You get the legacy team that's there, but we want you to build a high functioning team. How do you kind of approach that? We'll go Karen, Philippe, and then Ashley.
I generally know what I'm looking for in people in a customer facing role. And I think the big thing for me is a lot of attitude and personality. Obviously you want, good experience, people who have been client facing, they're comfortable doing those roles. They have good skills. But how they show up in an interview, how confident are they in speaking with you and having that conversation, because that's the same thing they're going to be doing every time they get on a Zoom call with a client. And so I've had some interviews where I was pretty shocked how people show up for a client-facing role, and you see the people that it's a little bit more natural, a little bit easier to have those conversations, but you need to be able to build a rapport, and you need to be able to kind of do it fairly quickly, connect with people, be open, be honest, and to be honest, this whole philosophy around, the strategy of whether client success, customer success should sit under sales, you have to also look at it from the lens of your customer base, and what is the visibility in that. So, if you think everybody you're dealing with at, the customer, everybody that they're dealing with at your company is selling all the time, that's a different perception as a customer. So versus having customer success, which, sort of traditionally has been, you become that partner for the customer. So those day-to-day operational leads that you're working with, you're really building these strong relationships with them that the sales team, they don't have the time to really they're not spending that amount of time with the customers. They're doing the front end piece, they're doing the selling, the pre-sales, they get the contract and then they hand it over to customer success. And then you're building those relationships and, being able to have people feel like they can be honest with you about what's really happening, whether they're happy or they're not happy. A lot of customers won't be honest with you about what's really going on their side if they don't feel like they have that good relationship with customer success.
Yeah.
So, when I'm hiring, I'm really looking for people who are good at making those connections, good at the people skills, because, that's really where you're going to uncover some stuff that is going to help you when you get to that renewal, or you're going to know what those problems are ahead of time, because they're going to feel comfortable calling you up and saying, look, I've got a problem and can you help me? Can you help me solve this? Your product doesn't do XYZ. My leadership wants us to go to your competitor. I don't want to change because the impact on my day-to-day. And you see
Right.
that a lot. The operational leads are like, look, changing to competitors constantly just puts more work on your plate. So, there's a lot to think about when you're hiring. And, that's my take is, finding those people who are going to be good at the soft skills, the people skills.
You could be like Adobe and like hide the cancellation, where it's like, what's harder to do than cancel an Adobe subscription? I mean, you're
Right.
laughing, like that was the joke on the All In podcast with like, they were talking about, I was like, I had never thought about it until actually that moment. I was like, yeah, it actually is really hard to try to cancel if you ever signed up. But yeah, just use the contract, just browbeat them. And anyway, I'm joking. Go ahead, Philippe.
I suppose that's one way to do it. No, I mean, I think Karen has half of it. Very, very accurate. I think it's right people, right bus, right time, right seat. So do you have the people that are there to do the work that you need at the right time? And are they doing the right role? Because sometimes, whether they're 0 to 5 million to your point, or 5 to 25, 25 to 50 or whatever, maybe their skills aren't lending themselves to becoming a head of success. They were great at 0 to 5 where they were just doing success, but they're not there to be the head of your success team when you're building it out. They might be a great right-hand person.
Mm-hmm.
They might be a great up and coming, but you need to hire somebody to drive that bus, as it were. And then as you grow even further, once you get to 100 to 200 million, you sit there and go, okay, well, now it's like a completely different bus. It's a completely different style. You need someone else that has a different skill set. Maybe they might have both, right? But you have to be able to evaluate the people. And that goes for your leaders, that goes for your individual contributors, that goes with someone might have been in support. They might be better at success or vice versa throughout their time frame. So I think that goes with figuring out who you've got, where their skills lie, and then how do you hire against them. I think the second component of it that exists to drive a highly functioning team is the leader themselves. So I believe strongly in transparency, consistency, and clarity. Those are my three kind of trigger words, as it were, that I drive for every single time I have a conversation about my leadership style. One is I'm transparent about what I think, what I want, how I want to get there. What are we doing? Who fits? What doesn't fit? The data. I talk about EBITDA. I talk about bookings. I talk about metrics and numbers so that the entire team knows what's going on. Second is you're consistently doing that so that your teams don't think about you as a flip-flopper, so that they're not like, well, you said this yesterday and now you're saying this, or you told person this X this and you told person Y that. And then the third is being super clear about what's going on and how we're going to accomplish it, because that brings your whole entire group together. And if you have the right people in the right seats at the right time, and then you're clear about everything, you have this, call it smooth sailing, as it were, at least in terms of a high functioning team.
So basically, you're the opposite of a politician.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They make really crappy.
I want to be clear. I want to be transparent. You said flip flopper, Philippe. It just like triggered. I was like, oh, it's like this is what came to mind. So awesome. Go ahead, Ashley.
Yeah, I think that both Karen and Philippe have touched on components of my own toolkit for building out a high functioning team. I'd say that one of the most tangible benefits is being able to say, I know I hired you to do the job today, but I also want to keep you for the job tomorrow. And it also helps build because they understand that you are invested in their growth. A big part of getting people to do their best is showing that you just simply believe in them. And one component that hasn't been mentioned yet is enablement. From my perspective, creating a really great enablement engine in order to say, here's what's being expected of you. Here's how you are performing against that. Here's what we can collectively do. And I want to talk through that with you to figure out how we can get to that next level. So injecting a layer of accountability that is not just top down, me telling you something, but that you're fully invested in getting there because you had a hand in defining what it looked like. I also tend to, because if we talk about customer success profiles in particular, I don't really hire customer success managers depending on what the actual job is looking like. So as an example, at Unity, we had a creative division that focused on gaming and media and entertainment. We had an industrial division that was focused on architecture, engineering, construction. I tried to hire from the industry itself first, and then help with enablement to turn them into a good, life cycle success manager, if you will, because there's something that I could do as a leader to complement the skills that they were already bringing to the table in order to become that, fully fledged, really great, high performing CSM that we needed.
To Karen's point, you can't teach attitude, right?
No.
It's not teachable. One of my favorite hires, and this was probably 20 years ago, 15 years ago by now, but I hired a bar manager from Pluckers to be a tech support / success person. They had no experience on the product, the experience, the industry, but they had the right attitude and they can deal with anything. If you're a bar manager at Pluckers, you can deal with any problem that gets thrown at you and you have the right mentality to show up every day and work your butt off.
Yeah. No, I think that's all super good. I know, I remember in one of my leadership experiences when I was a director, I was meeting with my team and I told them, I said, I'm here to teach you all that I know so that you will one day replace me. And I was like, the job of a leader is to create other leaders, like zombies. No, I mean, the job of a zombie is to...
We're spawning.
I know, we're spawning other zombies. No, but people that truly care, they're always trying to lift up others and bring them up in any way they can, try to train, coach, mentor, bring them up. But the challenge and the trouble is a lot of times this scarcity mindset, to where there are people within organizations who are in leadership where I always want to hire people smarter than me, people who are the best, the best I can find, have them solve all the problems they can, and then I try to solve the problems they bring to me, right? And I think it's the job of the leader to have a vision and to have, like Philippe said, you have to bring clarity, right? So if you don't have clarity on your team, if people don't know where you stand on things or what the policies are, or, okay, we're onboarding, is Brad going to be mad at me because I onboarded this account in 30 days? Well, if there's a policy and there's clarity, hey, the policy is every client onboarded in 14 days, right? There's not ambiguity. And then you're just trying to lift up others so that you can one day go into the, ride into the sunset and create other leaders, because I think that is one of the biggest challenges. Because to me, leadership is the position in our economy with the biggest deficit. Like, there's a lot of people who brand themselves as leaders on LinkedIn, but what true leadership looks like is the ability to get results through other people and help lift them up. So they're not only doing their job, but they're coming to you and saying, hey, Ashley, I'm not going to lie, this job's easy. It's not fulfilling anymore. I need something else to scratch the itch. And you're like, perfect. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's create a new role for you. So I think it's helping expand already people who have taken that on, right? Because there's a lot of people who want to move up the corporate ladder and they want to take on more responsibility. They want to make more money. And it's like, okay, how do I help them do that? Oh, I have to create more value for the company.
That's why I'm a huge fan of companies that have growth tracks that are people manager tracks and non-people manager IC tracks, and where their salary matches that level. You really start to unlock this concept of you can lead without the titleless leaders. And I would hope that anyone who comes and says, I want that promotion, well, do you want to be a boss or do you want to be a leader? Because they really are two completely different things.
Yep.
Well, totally agree. I keep thinking, I don't know the exact quote, but the difference between a boss and a leader: a boss tells people to follow them and a leader inspires people to follow them. There's a big difference there. Exactly what you're saying, Ashley. So, yeah.
What's funny is, I think maybe it was yesterday or the day before, I literally made a post about this. I said, management is going to be dead because AI will take over management.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership is a completely different story, right? Management, directing people what to do, when to do it, how to do it, data-driven, that doesn't require human interaction,
right?
Unless you want the empathy, right? But that becomes leadership. So if you do it purely from a go do something perspective, the boss, that AI can do 90% of that today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Leadership, empathy, vision, strategy, direction, it doesn't have the human nuance. And maybe it never will. Maybe it will. I don't know. But today it definitely doesn't. And so I think people that want to be a boss, you don't want to be a boss. You want to be a leader, and you want to be someone that can uplift everybody. And it is not a zero-sum game. It is not I got lifted, you don't get lifted, or vice versa.
Right.
Because it's all fun. It's fun in games when things are good, but it's not good when things are really, really bad. How many people have been through restructurings and layoffs and had to make changes in relationship performance? I mean, it takes a certain muscle, and you have to have a certain stomach in order to do that effectively and still log on the next day. So from my perspective, it is absolutely a risk. And Philippe, I think you mentioned something about sort of the power of influence is what I'm gathering from that. Influencing as a leader today is so difficult because you're not dealing with an uninformed audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have opinions. We can have access to the same research articles as the other person does and come to a completely different conclusion. We really have to be next level in terms of being effective leaders in this day and age.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, these are all really good comments. And I would just say, if you've been in your career for any amount of time, you've worked for people you wouldn't follow into a 7-Eleven. And then if you're lucky enough, maybe you'd follow someone through fire, right? So there's definitely the quality of the leadership varies widely, and everyone kind of knows that people don't leave jobs, they leave, cultures, they leave leaders, they have a boss. So if you are a great leader, and if you are just know you're doing God's work, because not only that, if you have a great boss, everyone that's had a great boss realizes your whole quality of life is better. So I think there's so much value in just being someone who holds these types of principles and these types of ideas. And I'll just end by just saying that, as I've been on my founder journey with Success Panda, I know that I've had a lot of personal growth. And one of the things that I can tell that my own leadership, where I'm being effective in my leadership, is that, a boss you have to follow because you're compelled to. But like a leader is someone who chooses to follow you. And it's like the same as someone who's a dad and I have 4 kids. If I said, wag my finger at them and say, oh, you have to do what I say or else. But, say in 20 years when they're all grown up, if they voluntarily come back to see me, right, because I was good to them and, I lived by, I was a good dad, then that's leadership, right? Because they're choosing you. And so you want your team to choose you as a leader. And there's a lot of things that you can do to try to make that. But yeah, this has been a super good discussion. So let's wrap up here with how do people work with you or find out more about you? And we'll start with Ashley, Philippe, and then Karen.
The easiest way of getting in touch is LinkedIn. I do monitor my inbox and I'm pretty engaging there. So feel free to reach out. If you're interested in knowing more about what I do at the Success RX, you can find me at thesuccessrx.ca. And this has been a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me, Brad.
I agree. I appreciate the conversation. And Karen, Ashley, it's been great to talk. LinkedIn is definitely the easiest place to find me. I post pretty regularly, engage with people there. And then from there, we'll go talk if there's anything I can do from coaching, mentorship, fractional consultancies, whatever that I can help you with. Let me know.
Awesome.
Also, LinkedIn, would love to connect with other people working in customer success. I think this is a really important time for us to help support each other and network and see where, you can help other people in different ways. I recently started a local group in San Diego with Amy Oilman. So we're starting Success San Diego. We had our first mixer in March. We had about 30 people show up, which in the rain in San Diego was pretty impressive. So we have our next event coming up in April, and the response has been really, really positive. So people are looking for community in our industry. And I think I'm happy to kind of get that going here in San Diego.
Yes, they are, Karen. People are looking for community, and they're looking for people who they want to choose to follow. And so with that, we will go ahead and end episode 27. Ashley, Philippe, Karen, thanks for coming on the show. And everybody, have a great weekend. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, all.
Bye.